Okay, we are live. It is another Pittsburgh Hockey Now live chat. I said I was done with these for the summer, but, well, I guess I'm not. Do me one quick solid. Let me share this to social media right quick because I'm a little bit, I'm 3 minutes late, but you get the idea. So we're going to really dive in and break down the Penguins trade, dealing Braden Yager to the Winnipeg Jets in exchange for their top prospect, Rutger McGroarty, disgruntled top prospect, Rutger McGroarty. And so we're going to dive into this, and I know a lot of you wanted to ask a whole lot of questions. I started writing my analysis, and by the time I was done, I went from a good grade to a great grade on this trade. But let me dive into my YouTube page here so I can share this with the masses so you all can ask some questions. I hope that's okay. It was, I think, it was quite interesting to me how this all went down because no one heard hide nor hair of the trade. It completely escaped all the rumor mags and all of the top reporters. My camera is flipped. Anywho. Okay, so let me share this on Twitter. You can tell, I literally have had zero time to prepare. We literally just finished up writing, took care of a couple of phone calls, and here we go. Oh, for gosh sakes. I get fat-fingered. Okay, there we go. All righty. So, let's start with the basics on this trade. Why? Why would the Penguins trade their top prospect in a time when they are rebuilding? In fact, I see Pamela already chimes in. What a horrible trade. Yager was one of the best. Well, Pamela, I don't know if you're new around the Pittsburgh Hockey Now parts. We spent quite a bit of time, money, and effort to go scout Braden Yager, primarily at the Memorial Cup. You can watch all the videos you want on YouTube, and it doesn't really give you the 3D picture of a player's game. When we went to Saginaw, Michigan, it took me 4 days to hitchhike to Saginaw. And I came away a little bit unimpressed, or actually quite a bit unimpressed with Yager's overall game. He could skate well enough. He had a blistering wrist shot. The downside of Yager's game was how he took a back seat in the offensive zone. He was not assertive. Now, they had a very good offensive defenseman in Moose Jaw, the 12th overall pick in 23, Denton Matejchuk, really in the Adam Fox, Erik Karlsson mold. For the Columbus Blue Jackets, that kid is going to be good. However, it was Yager's job to kind of lead that line. Also, Yager Firkus, Seattle's high-scoring prospect they acquired, and it looked to me very often that Yager was floating at the blue line in the offensive zone, almost kind of as a stopgap measure. Now, that's okay when the defenseman has already pinched, but the blue line, then it's time to go. Then it's time to get in the play, get to the net, get the puck, distribute, really begin to drive the play. Braden Yager didn't do that. As a result, Moose Jaw was behind for almost the entirety of their 3 Memorial Cup games. Let me loosen this. I'm going to raise this. You can tell I hooked up a new microphone. We were trying to figure it out, and I got done chasing the gremlins. By the way, if the sound kind of goes up and down, do me a favor, let me know, because I've got it narrowed down to one more thing if the sound isn't perfect. So anyway, I don't mean to beat up Braden Yager. I do it as a pretense to say the Penguins don't make this trade if they think Yager is going to be a second-line center in the next couple, maybe few years. They don't, let me repeat that. The Penguins don't make this trade if they think he's a second-line center. Not this year, I don't think. Next year or in 2 years. You do not trade a second-line center, a top six center, in exchange for a middle six winger. And I mean, before we kind of blow up and overhype Rutger McGroarty, he's a middle six winger. I mean, he really has a lot of offensive skill. He's got some grit to his game. He's a little bit of a banger. He can go to the net. But he's not necessarily an elite scorer. So, and he's certainly not an elite skater. His skating might be classified as average to mediocre. So, put it all together, and it tells you the Penguins began to understand the ceiling on Braden Yager, and that's why they made the trade. And quite frankly, as I put that all together, my trade grade went from a B+ on Pittsburgh Hockey Now all the way up to an A+ because of that. I do think the Penguins and Kyle Dubas overpaid a little bit. And why do I say that? Because several trades had fallen through in the past. Other teams didn't want to put McGroarty in the NHL right away. Okay. You have to ask yourself, why not? That's a little bit of a knock on McGroarty. But also, I completely forgot my train of thought. It completely jumped from me. But I think, to finish the point, it came back to me. Nobody else was going to pay that much for Rutger McGroarty. And that's why I think the Penguins overpaid. I think they could have given up a lesser prospect. Now, maybe Winnipeg doesn't do it. Maybe Kevin Cheveldayoff digs his heels in and says, until someone gives me an equivalent prospect, I'm not moving him. Which, I mean, in reality, Winnipeg had zero, and I mean zero, leverage here. Zero leverage. Because McGroarty was fine to go back and play at the University of Michigan. What happens when he expires his eligibility at Michigan? He becomes a free agent. And Winnipeg gets nothing for him. From that caveat, I thought Dubas overpaid. On the whole, however, if you just look at the player they gave up versus the player they got, it is, in fact, an A+, and McGroarty will be in the NHL this season. We might find out if he can play in that top six sort of role. I don't see him playing on the left wing beside Sidney Crosby. I don't see that in a million years. Not for a rookie. That is too prime time real estate. That's too high pressure. They would need him to be a 25-goal scorer immediately, 30-goal scorer immediately to take that left wing on Sidney Crosby's side. Because he's not going to be as good defensively as Drew O'Connor, who's probably going to score 20 goals beside Sidney Crosby, but be very good defensively and on the forecheck. That's not going to be McGroarty's game. So when you kind of factor all the pros and cons, McGroarty would have to be a 30-goal scorer on the left wing to out-equal the value that Drew O'Connor will bring on that line. That's a whole lot to ask for a rookie. So where McGroarty probably slots, and by the way, there is some question if the new kid can play left wing or right wing. He was primarily a left wing last season beside Frank Nazar, who is a Chicago Blackhawks prime prospect, made his NHL debut at the end of last season, played 3 games, which only emboldened McGroarty. Okay, so I think I've downloaded quite enough of my brain, and we'll get back into it, because We can talk about the fallout of the lineup. There are a couple guys who I think you like who are going to get squeezed out. There are some real possibilities that a couple of the high-priced veterans actually have to go through waivers and go to Wilkes-Barre, which is not going to be a good look on the Penguins. And I'll explain what I mean by that here after some questions. Okay. Let's see here. Gavin says, sounds good. That's good. Driscoll, my man. Thanks, Dan. Oh, you're very welcome, Driscoll. Michael Thompson. He will be on Sid's line this year to get him used to the chemistry of the team. Listen, as long as Mike Sullivan, or actually, as long as the coach and the players are on the same page in trying to win, okay? Big picture now. Follow me. Kyle Dubas fully admitted that he and the locker room, which includes the coaches, are probably going to be on a different page for a while. Dubas is building to the future while he fully concedes they are going to try to win. And that's the duality that he's created, presumably with the blessing and buy-in of Mike Sullivan. Now, Michael, to your point, I'm putting Rutger McGroarty on Sidney Crosby's line. They're still trying to win each game. They're not going to worry about 3 years from now on the ice. Dubas' job is to worry about 3 years from now. On the ice, they're going to try to win each shift, each period, each game. And as I kind of explained a minute ago, McGroarty probably won't be. I mean, listen, he might come in and be a ball of fire who fits perfectly with Sidney Crosby. Unlikely. Short of that, Drew O'Connor will be there. Let's see here. Could have been other offers too. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, we know there were other offers for, what's his name? McGroarty. We know several trades in the past fell through. So, there certainly were other offers, but those trades fell through not because of the other team's offer to Winnipeg, but because of the other team's offer to McGroarty, and that's NHL ice time. Jim tells me other people rated the trade as an A- for the Jets, a B+ for the Pens. I can get behind that. That's where I was. But can I be honest here? Can I pat myself on the back a little bit? That's the benefit of me going to Saginaw for the better part of a week and covering the Memorial Cup in person. Other people are looking at other people's work. Other people are looking at stat sheets and scouts projections from a couple of years ago, and other people are working off of second and third hand information where you're coming here, you're getting straight first-hand stuff. Pillar to post. So I hope that's why you keep coming back. Let's see here. So move Bunting, then drop McGroarty with Gene. No. McGroarty plays third line. What better way to introduce a rookie into the NHL slowly, add the offense that the Penguins very badly need in the bottom six in a low-pressure environment? Third line, I don't know if he plays third line left wing or third line right wing. Third line all day for me. Where do I see the new Pens lineup halfway through the season? You asking me to project the lineup in like December or January, Tyler? Or do you mean halfway through the offseason? Because right now, listen, it is an absolute mess. You can hear my phone, R2. The Penguins lineup is almost like stuffing all these veterans into a clown car. Far more are in than you would ever expect. They're just going to come spilling out. You're like, is this done yet? Where are they all coming from? Kevin Hayes, Anthony Beauvillier, Blake Lizotte, Noel Acciari, Lars Eller. Who am I forgetting? Cody Glass. There's 8 players for the bottom 6 already. Now we add McGroarty. Oh, I'm forgetting Valtteri Puustinen. Now you add McGroarty into the mix. So where do I see the Penguins lineup? Tyler, if I'm being brutally honest, which I usually am, I see Puustinen being the first odd man out. I mean, listen, last season he was a fun guy to have around. He certainly got some offensive potential. When a guy who's about 25 years old can't give you consistent effort night in and night out, which was the problem with Puustinen, that's not a guy that Mike Sullivan is going to circle and put in the lineup over other people. And look, they scratched Puustinen quite a bit last year, too. I think he's the first guy out. I think Cody Glass is probably the second guy out. Beauvillier might find himself in an uncomfortable position, too. If Ponomarev, the Penguins prospect, can come in like a ball of fire in training camp, I see Beauvillier in trouble. But otherwise, the Penguins have way too many guys. I don't necessarily understand or can figure out how this lineup is going to shake out yet. Because the reality is there is not going to be nearly enough ice time in training camp and the preseason in order for Sullivan to give everybody a fair and equal shot. That's just not how it works. You know, this isn't like NFL training camp where a guy who's an undrafted free agent can just really start popping the pads for a couple days, go up a rung. A week later, go up a rung. A week later, go up to the 53-man roster. Doesn't work that way in the NHL. The reality is training camp is less than 2 weeks long. You're into preseason games. The last preseason game is usually for the veterans and the lineup. So you've got about 3 games to show your stuff, and there's going to be 12 people all fighting for like 6 spots, and it's going to be a little bit of a mess. And I know what I would do. And that's kind of the interesting thing. To me, Lars Eller better than Kevin Hayes, better than Cody Glass. Blake Lizotte in that role, in that fourth line sort of role, better than Cody Glass. And so the Penguins' salary dumps that they accepted to acquire these draft picks are what confuse me. I don't know what they're going to do with these veterans. I genuinely, honest to God, don't. I know Dubas has no compunction, he has no fear of putting players through waivers. He said so on his first day. By the same token, you also, you can't get a bad reputation amongst the players. And Dubas walked that line. Hear me now, believe me later. Dubas walked that line very dangerously last season with the number of veterans who were supposed to get a good shot with the Penguins who were stuck in Wilkes-Barre. It didn't sit well with a couple of them who, bolted before mid-season. We're like, get me out of here. This is not what I signed up for, because Wilkes-Barre had too many veterans. They were scratching guys. And listen, that's a bad look on Kyle Dubas. That means the next year you can't go promising all these veterans a good and equal shot because they know what happened last year. And so that's, if Dubas were to, let's just say, put a lot of these veterans through waivers wholesale, it's going to affect the Penguins' trade ability. Because a veteran might say, I'm not going to, no, you can't trade me to Pittsburgh. I don't care if you're dumping my salary or not, I'm not going to Pittsburgh. I don't trust them, or I'm not going to Wilkes-Barre, or I'm not going to be the 13th or 14th forward because they brought in a bunch of other guys. It's not how established players want to go through their 30s. So it's an interesting thing to me. Let's see here. Parksy can split Bunting and Gino. Gino hasn't looked better in recent years with anyone except... Oh, I think you mean you can't split Bunting and Gino, which I would kind of agree with. I think they found a little something there with Bunting and Malkin. I think Mike Sullivan agreed. So I don't think... Right. So going to the McGroarty, he's either going to displace Drew O'Connor on the top line. I don't think McGroarty can skate to that level with Crosby and Rust. It doesn't feel at this moment like a good match to me. So the third line, listen, if you had McGroarty, Hayes, and Achari, or whoever you put on that right wing, Beauvillier, Puustinen, that to me sounds like a much better third line currently than Beauvillier, Hayes, and Puustinen, which I think is a terrible third line. All right, Jay. Excellent move by Dubas. It'll be fun to compare their careers. We won't really know for a while. Well, that's true with everything, right? If Rutger is a Calder candidate while Crosby and Malkin are still decent, it'll seem like a win. Jeez, man, that's some heavy-duty expectations there. Let's maybe hold off on the Calder Trophy talk. If McGroarty scores 15 goals this year, 15 goals, 40 points, that's a win for the Penguins. Yeah, is it? Is that really a win? I say that out loud, and now I'm second-guessing myself. I think ultimately McGroarty has to be a 50-point guy. But let's see, because I do think Yager is probably a 30 to 40-point center in the NHL. So a winger has to be a step above that because a center is more valuable. How the Penguins could lose this trade is if Yager makes the NHL roster with Winnipeg next year and puts up, say, 40 points. And McGroarty puts up 40 points. The Penguins aren't going to look that good in the deal, quite frankly. So let's see here. Gavin. Sullivan is going to be forced to play him and hate it. Gavin, you're not one of those people, are you? You're not, I thought I've punctured the balloon and buried the latex deep underground on that whole Mike Sullivan won't play young players stuff. I hope I did. But no, that is the biggest canard in the Penguins fan base. Time and again, I hear it from the unwashed. It's just not true. I mean, look, last year, Valtteri Puustinen, P.O. Joseph. I mean, P.O. Joseph had to earn his way back in, but he had a lineup spot to start. What other young players were in there? Jansen Harkins was in his mid-20s. People forget that kind of stuff. And Drew O'Connor. The young players were, in fact, in the NHL lineup last year, and Sullivan played them. Miltrops loves the trade. A+ for the Penguins, B- for the Jets. Now, see, I'd give the Jets an A+ here. They got the very best prospect they possibly could have gotten for McGroarty. Again, go back to the fact that the Jets had zero leverage. Absolutely none. Zero. They were over a barrel. Maybe Dubas let them off the hook a little bit to get the deal done. I don't know. But A+ for the Jets. They were not going to ever do better for McGroarty than Braden Yager. All right, I have to assume with a glut of younger players, writes Ryan, and a glut of third and fourth line guys, somebody has to go. Maybe Eller or Achari, and possibly with so many D-men as well. Well, the defensemen, I think, the defensemen know their role. Aho would not be surprised to be sent to the American Hockey League. I think Jack St. Daily Faceoff has Aho ahead of Jack St. Ivany on the Penguins depth chart. I'm like, no, I don't see that at all. You're going to keep 7. Aho can play both sides, as I recall, so he's probably your 7, and everybody else is, probably out of luck. Unless somebody really, like Ryan Shea, really steps it up and shows he learned something from last year. But yeah, that stupid meme that went around the internet this week saying that I reported the Penguins were trying to trade Lars Eller and Noel Acciari. I did not report that. I need to put some stuff on the screen besides my ugly mug. I did not report that. But I do think, if you're going to bring in Hayes on a 2-year contract, also acquire Cody Glass, I do think Achari and Eller have some trade value, and you'll get more draft picks. Lars says this could be a great trade for the Pens. They need snarl and size. I just hope Sullivan will give him a solid chance. As I understand, he can be slow. That's a fair point, in so much as if the player can't execute the up-tempo game the Penguins are going to want to play. Then again, Kevin Hayes, Cody Glass, these guys aren't fast. Anthony Beauvillier is. Anthony Beauvillier's, an A skater. But the other guys certainly are not. So would you have a line of subpar skaters? Would you? Would you do McGroarty, Hayes, and Beauvillier, knowing all three are okay skaters? That's interesting. And then if you decide that line can't work for various reasons, can't get to enough pucks, can't keep the puck in the offensive zone, so on and so forth, what do you do with McGroarty? Because, listen, he's on his entry-level contract. You can, in fact, send him to the American Hockey League. Now, how he reacts to such a move would be quite interesting. He might pout the whole way down Interstate 80. He might not go. I mean, that would be quite interesting. I wonder, and there won't be a Kyle Dubas press conference today. I checked. Before I did this, I double-checked with the Penguins. Hey, is a Dubas presser coming? And they're like, no Dubas press conference. So, did Kyle Dubas, in the process of making this trade, did he tell McGroarty, we're going to give you a shot, but if you don't produce to this level, we are going to send you to Wilkes-Barre? Did he have that conversation? Okay, Michael's back. If you move Bunting, you can get Doc down on the third line again, which can spark offense. Yes, but you're also understand that the Penguins' top line is going to produce 35 to 40% of the Penguins' offense. That's not ideal. That's just where things stand. And I don't see McGroarty as a good chemistry match with Crosby, first of all. Just, I don't see it. Not with Brian Rust and Crosby, the way they play the game, full speed, straight ahead. I think O'Connor is the guy who can skate with them, who can provide some additional defensive help, but also put in those 20 goals and the size along the wall and the puck retrieval. Don't forget, puck retrieval is a huge part of that top line. One of the guys, one of the wingers has to be great on puck retrieval, and O'Connor really brought that. I don't think that's McGroarty's game. And so for all those reasons, the math to me works out far better in O'Connor's favor. The chemistry, I think, works out far better too. People forget Yager started on the fourth line. Third line would be ideal. Yep. Was it the first year? Yager, Trottier, and Troy Loney? Was it? In 1990-91? Was that the line? Was it Troy Loney? But I do remember Yager playing with Brian Trottier. Yeah. Great call, Scott. Bring them in at their own pace, leisure, speed. Let them dictate where things go from there. Peter says, hey, folks, hit that like button. Yeah, like, subscribe. Do me a favor. Let's get paid. Milltops, or is that Mitrops? Let me put... here, let me do the old man thing. Oh, it's Mitrops. Mitrops. More trades are needed. I think so. I think they have to lessen the load here. I think there are too many NHL players coming to training camp, and that's, I mean, you can do it. Sure, there's no rule against it. But what benefit is there to keeping players who aren't part of your long-term future in the press box, buried on the fourth line, or in an ill-fitting role. The benefit is to, in fact, move them along and recoup those assets that Dubas, quote, as urgently as possible, end quote, wants to acquire. Cal, hey, Dan, really like Yager, but it's probably a good deal for the Penguins. Rutger should be able to play sooner. Cal, yeah, I mean, yes, that fact is correct. That McGroarty will be in the NHL sooner. That should not have been, and probably was not, an impetus to this trade. And here's why I say that. I'm going big picture now. Follow me. Dubas acquired the St. Louis Blues 2025 second-round pick along with Kevin Hayes, right? However, he was willing to give that up, delaying his gratification to 2026 in exchange for a third-round pick. The reality is a 2026 second-round pick and a 2025 third-round pick are probably 3, if not 4 years away from the NHL. So we start talking about 2028, 2029 in reality for when the Kevin Hayes trade will bear fruit. Think about that. 4 years from now. If Dubas really were that concerned about getting prospects to the show a lot faster, he would have held on to that 2025 pick. Or he would have insisted on a greater 2025 return. But instead, by punting it a year, he is essentially getting a couple of players who will be ready in 28 or 29. So when you say, well, McGroarty will be ready sooner than Yager, I say it doesn't matter. For those reasons, and also for the reason that the Penguins lineup is already stuffed. What would it matter? Right? If McGroarty reached the NHL a year sooner than Yager. Go back to the fundamental principle we started the show with. If Yager were in fact going to be a second-line center in the Penguins' estimation, there is no way in hell they do this trade. Period. Puustinen has to be out, Parksy says. I would agree. Poulin has to be out. Absolutely. There's simply no space for Sam Poulin. Poor guy. I mean, he's fought back, but I don't think the Penguins are the team for him. Ryan asks, man, Ryan, you promised to keep the questions coming, and you're delivering. Do I still like Tristan Brose and Ponomarev having a chance? Not really. No, I think with the Glass trade and now this trade that Brose and Ponomarev, well, Ponomarev still has an outside shot. Ponomarev could displace a veteran if he significantly outplays them. And that's what's the old boxing adage? You have to knock out the champion. So Ponomarev is going to have to knock out one of the veterans. It can't be in any way, shape, or form a close call, which I don't think Ponomarev is that good to be able to do that. Can't lie. Ricard Raquel is on the hot seat this season. Why? His contract is guaranteed. What is it? He's got 4 more years? 3 more years. They can't trade him. If he, let me rephrase that part. If he doesn't have a good year, they can't trade him. If he has a very good year, he's integral to keeping a competitive top 6. Which, as long as Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin are, in fact, on the roster, a competitive top 6 is entirely 101% necessary. Brendan, thoughts on the PTO the Pens gave to Knyzhov, or I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's of no consequence, Brendan. The defense is already chocked full. This is him showing up to get an audition to go to Wilkes-Barre. what's he played? 81 games in 3 years. He was a minus 30 in that time with the kind of crappy San Jose Sharks. Meh. I'm not going to go there with you. I don't think it's really much consequence. Let's see here. Mark says McGroarty is officially Sid's shiny new toy. Mark, you're not listening. You're not paying attention, my man. There is absolutely nothing to dislike about this trade. I would agree with that. Well, yeah, I mean, the thing to dislike is the Penguins did overpay. I do not think that Winnipeg was going to get anything close to this trade from anybody else. Let's see here. And the young guys are not going to improve enough on line 4. Why? No, listen, that's not true. A young player can certainly get, in 10 minutes of ice time, you can certainly improve enough to learn and grow and gain more ice time. Most of the players start in that way. Brian Rust started that way. And I talked to Rusty about it last year. I don't know if you guys remember the PHN Plus piece I did when he and I kind of sat down and went over this sort of stuff, because there was talk about young players coming up and who was it? Oh, Drew O'Connor was starting to seize his opportunity. And I asked Brian Russ, I'm like, hey, you were in that position before. Young guy, out of college, fourth line duty, trying to climb up the ladder. And his answer was soundbite perfection. And he's like, it doesn't matter if you play 1 minute or 10 minutes. On that next shift, you have to come out like your hair is on fire. You have to fight your way up the lineup by being your very best on every shift, like it's your last shift. You don't get many opportunities, so you have to capitalize on your opportunity. And it was like, there you go. That's exactly right. Now, if you're playing well, the coaches see that, and they give you more opportunities, more chances. No. Rutger McGroarty said he absolutely would not play in the AHL with Winnipeg. They wanted to start him in the AHL, and he's like, nope, not signing with you. Tough luck, guys. And that's why I'm kind of wondering if the Penguins had that conversation with him, because their lineup is full. Like, hey, dude, you're not producing. We are going to send you down. Gary Anderson says, I love this trade. Charles asks, where does Cody Glass fit in? That was 20 minutes ago. Okay, so I've answered a lot of these. Let's see here. Let me scroll. Matthew says, I wanted to see the Yager Howe line. I kind of did too, actually. Tom of Canada. Dan, I agree with your assessment on Yager. It is likely that Dubas did not believe Yager to be a 1-2 or even a 3 center. 3 might be pushing it. I think 3 would be a comfortable spot for him. Let's see here. How long did it take for Drew O'Connor? Well, he had the bolt of lightning his rookie professional season. What did he play, like 20 games? He had, 5 points in his first 5 games, 5 points in his first 6 games, and then he cooled off and did the whole shuttle thing for a couple of years. Okay, Michael says, I'd keep Shea and St. Ivany as a pair. They were great together. St. Ivany did his job. Let's not overhype Shea. Shea was a nice, warm body who didn't hurt them like the big-time free agent they signed. Okay, let's catch up here a little bit on the comments. Daniel, what's up? Let's see here. Shane, is McGroarty a type of prospect that would be part of the core for the rebuild? Yes. I'm not going to commit to that wholeheartedly. His ceiling certainly is that of like a good second-line winger. I think to be called part of the core, however, you have to be ingrained in the locker room leadership, though. That's why I kind of hedge on calling Erik Karlsson part of the Penguins core. I don't think he's ingrained in the locker room leadership quite like a core player would be. Oh, yeah, Michael, Matt Nieto. Listen, I think Nieto's career is over, or it's possibly over. He's had 3+ surgeries on his knee in the last year plus. Don't expect to see Matt Nieto around anytime soon. Too many centers on the team. Actually, Michael, you're onto something. Let me be more specific to your point. Too many left-handed centers on the team. You need some righties. Let's see here. C says, Well, C, I say to you, All right, let's see here. Ponomarev has the best shot at being an NHLer. I think of the current prospects this season, that is certainly true. Evan says Karlsson will have a better year. It would be tough for him not to. Burn. He was okay. I really do think he was okay. Does Jarry or Ned start on opening night? Tristan Jarry. Ryan says not a playoff team, but they are better, and a lot of these guys are going. Still not a playoff team, but they are better, and a lot of these guys are gone in a year or two. Put a period there for me. Still think the timeline in 2 years, which I disagree with. Well, I mean, they're going to really be a different team in 2 years, but they're not going to be competitive. I mean, think about it. In 2 years, Evgeny Malkin is done. Kevin Hayes and Lars Eller and all the centers are gone. So you're asking a lot of B and C prospects to come in and be Stanley Cup contenders? No. Nope. Does Miroshov finding himself in the starting role in Wilkes-Barre? No. That's going to be a goalie share with Joel Blomqvist. Rafi says, I was shocked, but I have to remind myself that if you are a fan of hockey, you know why. This has to be Mr. Dubas' difficult decision. I don't doubt McGroarty. I saw his hockey stats. I wonder what Yager's reaction will be. That's for sure. Yeah. I hadn't thought of Braden Yager's reaction. On the other side, he's actually a lot closer to home. I mean, he's only a province over now. Let's see here. Next year will be the big splash in free agency. No. Listen, they're not going. There's not enough free agent. There's not enough salary cap space to go buy a team like the Rangers and Red Wings did 20 years ago, before the salary cap. There's not enough salary cap space to take a no team to a contender. More specifically, why does a 29, 30-year-old who becomes a free agent, why would they want to sign with the Penguins? The Penguins are going to be their team. The Penguins will be players' second choice for the next several years. Just kind of accept that as a reality. Will Gino have more than 75 points this year? That's a very good over-under. As long as you promise not to bet on my take on this and get mad at me if I'm wrong, I would say under for this reason. Malkin has played all 82 games in each of the last 2 years. 3 years in a row seems a lot to ask. So I would bet on him missing 10 or 15 games, which would take him below 75 points. I remember, says that regular dude, I remember when Jets fans on cap-friendly forums were saying that the return for McGroarty would be as good as the return for Cutter Gauthier, if not better. I don't think the Jets did better. This is why I stay off the message boards. Understand that McGroarty took all leverage away when he wouldn't sign. And his eligibility was up a lot sooner than Cutter Gauthier. I also think the Flyers kept Cutter Gauthier's dissatisfaction with them under wraps a whole lot better. Slightly different, but, there is a point there. They did not do better than the Cutter Gauthier trade. Who asked the question here? Brendan. Oh, I can put these on the screen. When do you think we can see Pickering? A couple of years. Owen is still working into his growing body. In all due respect, he doesn't yet have a clean skating stride. He grew 2 more inches, for God's sakes, in the last year. I mean, he went from, 5'7" to 6 feet to 6'3" his draft year. A year later, he's 6'5", 200 pounds. Pickering is going to have to go through a little bit of a journey of self-discovery. Talking with him in Penguins development camp, he was talking about adding more offense. He wants to show that he has more offense in his game, and he wants to, kind of be a more proactive defenseman. The problem with that is every time I've seen him carry the puck or begin to try to do that, it doesn't necessarily go as well as you would want it to. His projection, in my estimation, is of a very Marcus Pettersson, steady Eddie, stay-home guy, placid, calm, get the puck, move it quickly, keep the puck out of your own net, pick up 20 points a year. That's where I see Owen Pickering. It's probably going to take him a little bit of time to figure all of that out. It's going to take him more time to figure out where his physical strength lies. I mean, 6'5", 200 pounds is still a little bit skinny. He probably has a bit more weight to gain to really, to fully be in that stay-home guy where he can play in front of the net, where he can clear some bodies. So I'm going to tell you, Brennan, probably 2 years at least. Did I miss any updates on Sid's contract? Shane, I hate you. I hate you. I am kind of done talking about it. I think I've said everything there is possibly to say, written everything there is possibly to write. It was a bit amusing, however. Sidney Crosby's agent is Pat Brisson. Rutger McGroarty's agent is Pat Brisson. So at least we know that Pat Brisson can sign at least one contract with the Penguins, right? All right, what's your take on the Crosby drama going around him not signing yet? I said more on TV Sunday night, and I think I truly don't know this. So take it with a grain of salt. My opinion on this is no better than yours. My gut says this is a head and heart thing. Sidney Crosby has, his heart wants to be here for forever. His head is probably saying a few things, like maybe you should retire in a couple of years. Maybe you should leave to expedite the Penguins' rebuild. Maybe you're in the way here. Maybe this won't be any fun either. Maybe this is going to be misery. Do you really owe the Penguins that, and do they owe that to you? That's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't stay. I mean, this is me personally. I mean, I'm thinking about it. Let's just say I'm at Pittsburgh hockey now for almost 20 years. New ownership comes in, and they want to do things differently. They're going to surround me with a bunch of young writers, and I'm kind of excited for it, but I also know that they're going a whole different direction than where I'm at. Would I leave? And the answer is probably yes. Of course, if new ownership comes into Pittsburgh hockey now, they will have given me a ton of money first, but making it a whole lot easier to leave. That's just kind of, I'm telling you my personal, if the situation doesn't, it's no different than you or I changing jobs despite you've been at a place you love for a very long time. All right, Tom of Canada says O'Connor, Crosby, Rust, Bunting, Malkin, Raquel. So far, so good. McGroarty, Hayes, Beauvillier / Puustinen. So far, so good. But then you have Glass and Puljujarvi. We always forget Puljujarvi, don't we? What to do with him? He's another guy that's going to get dumped into the AHL probably. Certainly there wouldn't be room for all of those guys. Beauvillier, Glass, Puljujarvi. Let's see here. The Jets, AJ from the Jets says, good luck with McGroarty, glorified third liner who can't skate and is an insane spoiled brat. Good riddance. Damn. I'm putting that on the screen. AJ bringing the heat. It's a hard reality to fathom being a player's number one choice for the past 20 years. Oh, I see Daniel's responding, in fact, to me saying, get used to being the Penguins, being the second choice. Yep, I mean, it just is. Who would you have and in what role on the first power play group, asks Destination Inshore. That's INS, not EN. And what do you think? And do you think we will be better under a new power play coach? Well, they couldn't be any worse, could they? It would be statistically impossible for that group of players to be any worse than they were last season. Not just because of the shorthanded goals, not just because of the lack of goals, but how often they were absolutely terrible, killing all momentum. Right? I mean, you get a power play kind of at the crescendo of some momentum. You either score a goal or get a power play at the crescendo of the momentum, and the Penguins would get a power play, and they would absolutely just corkscrew themselves. Couldn't be any worse. Let me see here. Let me write this out. Top power play unit. All right. Crosby, Carlson. I like Rust. Who's on the walls here? Rust and Bunting, maybe? And then do you put Malkin up top? Yeah. Maybe. And then Letang takes the second unit. I don't think you want Letang and Carlson on the same power play unit. Ever. Okay. Do we sign Marcus Pettersson? Probably not. Just being honest. Marcus can go get paid on the open market. I don't think, necessarily speaking, that the Penguins would have a lot of incentive to pay him to stick around through the rebuild. Let's see here. AJ is still firing away at McGroarty. I get your anger, man. Let's be honest. If a player did this to the Penguins, man, I can imagine the Yinzerverse, how you'd be treating a player who did the same thing to you. Okay. Let's see here. Steven. A bottom six line doesn't have to be fast. The Simone Bukestad-Hornquist line kept the puck in their opponent's zone and wore down the defense and scored occasionally. Actually, Steven, I'm going to tell you something you probably don't realize. Nick Bukestad could get from A to B really quickly. It didn't look like it, but his strides were like that friggin' long. And he got to where he was going very quickly. Dominic Simone was also a lot quicker than Penguins fans wanted to give him credit for. Same with Hornquist, actually. So if you're using that line as the example, I'm afraid you're going to have to do a little better for me. But yes, you're correct that, listen, get the puck in the zone, get it deep, ground and pound, and get the top line, get the second line back on the ice for a couple of offensive chances. Okay, we're going to wrap this up here. I can see when people start dropping away, it's time to just go and get out. AJ, man, I love the fire. Let's see here. So who's the last one? So I'm assuming the preseason will actually matter this year. Yes. Yes, it absolutely will, which means I have to drive up to Ottawa for that Kraft singles game, and I've got to drive to Buffalo and Columbus and Detroit. Ugh. Honestly, I was kind of hoping to not have to cover all the preseason games. Oh, Daniel lists all the players I forgot to. So here's the clown car in the Penguins' bottom six. Thank you, Daniel. Blake Lizotte, Kevin Hayes, Anthony Beauvillier. What else do I have to say? Jesse Pugliarvi, Valtteri Puustinen, Sam Poulin, Lars Eller, Nola Chari, John Gruden. Sam Poulin, yeah. We didn't start the fire. All right, I'm done. I'm out of here. Kids, it's been a blast. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. In fact, here is the full analysis of thine trade right there. Click on it and share it too. I appreciate y'all. Have fun.